Washington Pod presents EARL Nightingale.
All my life at just the right time and not a second sooner, I've been blessed with the greatest good fortune. I've had my share of setbacks, but with steadily recurring faith that the system I've outlined in this book really works, I've watched it confirm and reconfirm itself over and over again. Yes, we obtain what we make up our minds to obtain. We fulfill our expectations in each of the three vital areas of our lives. 1, our work. 2, our family. 3, our income. And not necessarily by any means in that order. I knew I wanted to be a writer when I was still a young boy. Broadcasting came along as a serendipitous spin-off, so my work has been satisfactorily progressing from the time I was mustered out of the Marine Corps following World War II. Since 1950, I've been writing and broadcasting my own radio programs, and for many years in Chicago, my own daily television programs. And since 1956, I've been writing and narrating recordings in an attempt to spread the word about achievement. One of the most difficult ideas for the human being to fully assimilate is that while we are social creatures, achievement is an individual and isolated affair. That is, while we're a part of a population of many millions and must find our being in successful relationships with such numbers, in fact our success depends upon it. In order to succeed in the steady pursuit and completion of our goals, we must think and act as distinct and separate, even different creatures. Just as a successful marriage, filled to overflowing with joy and genuine love for one another, depends upon two distinct individuals whose characteristics and experience perfectly meld them into an even better whole, our success as individuals operating in a highly populated environment must be an individual thing in each of the three categories: family, work, income. We need all three. And keep in mind that income comes in two distinct and important categories. It's the money we earn for the service we render, and equally important, it's the psychic income we receive for the service we render and for the full or nearly full utilization of ourselves in the process. This psychic income comes from both the family and the work and results in our self-esteem, the way we feel about and accept ourselves. We need all three. And we need the income in both categories. A man without the right woman in his life is a crippled, truncated, incomplete person. The same is true for the woman. Each of us is a half walking around looking for the other half. And when the two correct halves finally come together, all the lights go on and the music swells and anything at all becomes quite possible. And it's the same with the idea of work, or profession, or career, or whatever you want to call it. Two halves coming together to make a whole. But just as the successful marriage is different from all other marriages, successful or not, a person and his or her work, when it's the correct work, are different from all others, even those in the same work. That's because no two people are alike, and each of them brings a slightly different chemistry and experience and genetic profile to whatever he or she does. Diana and I were both married to other people before we met and fell deeply in love. Neither of us could bring to the others exactly what we brought to our relationship, nor was it possible before for either of us to find the astonishing blend of characteristics that worked to our mutual benefit when we did find one another. It was as though a master craftsman had formed two oddly shaped and complex parts and tossed them at different times into the Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles apart. In each was the required electronic homing device that would seek its perfect counterpart, but in the attempt might first form imperfect connections with others similarly involved. Finally, one morning in a completely strange setting, these two complicated parts would float into each other's range and begin a circling process to attempt once again to see if a perfect match-up were possible. And click, perhaps that's where the expression "we just clicked" comes from, the two suddenly find they fit. Not perfectly at first, but very well. And with the passing of each day after that, the fit gets better, tighter, until the seams are no longer visible. From that point on, they each exist as parts of a whole. They find their being together. The family is a success. The work should be a similar phenomenon, but with greater latitude. Mozart wrote great operas, but he also wrote delightful vaudeville sketches. As long as wonderfully original music was involved, Mozart was in his element. The architect can design a dwelling or a great auditorium or a church or a child's treehouse or a prison. To find the right person, we must know that the person exists, and that soon or late we shall come in contact with that person. With such expectancy, we become a willing magnet, receptively set at the correct signal, a scanning radar, we might say, with the inchoate picture of the person we're looking for, a part of our mind and being. We then need to bide our time and wait for the lights to go on and the music to play. Finding and living in the right work is in some ways quite similar, except it's a comfort we feel, a competence that we don't feel when doing other things. We can all do hundreds of things, just as we can meet hundreds of people of the opposite sex. But one of those things we can do with an uncommon ease and facility, the way Robinson Jeffers or Edgar Allan Poe could write poetry that can move us to tears. When that happens, the work is a tremendous success. And when that happens, it often follows that the income in both important categories, psychic and real, will take care of itself. But with these two great divisions of life now successfully accomplished, it's time for creative thinking. With this factor at work, the rest of one's life is assuredly endlessly interesting and endlessly successful. For with creative thinking, which includes the input of others who join your team, you're on a roll, as they say in Las Vegas, that needs to end only when you do. And it often happens that it need not end then, but be carried on by others. With a happy home life and in the right work, whatever that happens to be, and it will always involve serving others because that's what we're here for, adding the increment of creative thinking will give us an endless tessellation of new goals to reach. We have something interesting to do every day of our lives. And on the days when we have nothing at all to do, the idle Sunday or holiday that we devote to leisure, they have meaning also because we've earned the time off and feel good about it. Millions are now enjoying to the fullest their retirement years for the same reason. They've earned them, and each new day is an exercise in doing exactly what they want to do.